Welcome to Dear Mama. Today we are going to focus on the 34th entry, running from page 116 to 118. We will read, reflect upon what is key, get to synopsis, character and characterization, themes, then styles. Of course, let's begin by reading. The entry is written on 26th June 2020. We read, Dear Mama, my first assignment at the branch was a role I later learned as validation, which involved reviewing what the tellers did against a large report being printed in real time. I was inducted by Agnes, who had worked in the bank for more than a decade. She showed me 2 envelope-sized sheets of paper, one printed in red and the other in black. This is a credit slip. She waved a red one. And this is a debit slip. She waved the black one. Every transaction we do has a contra. That is the opposite transaction. So if we are crediting an account, we should be debiting from another account. So if we see a credit from the teller, there has to be a debit. My role was to ensure that the numbers on the credit and debit slips, bank copies and cash deposit slips and checks matched those in the report. Agnes gave me a red pen and I began ticking away. By the 3rd day, I was becoming quite bored with the job. The excitement of working behind the teller counters had started fading away. You mean I completed a whole degree only to come here and just tick off things? I complained to myself. The significance of what I was doing was only known to me when, a few days later, I picked up on an anomaly, a transaction posted in a different currency. When I showed it to Agnes for clarification, she exclaimed, dropped everything she was doing, and rushed to the teller cubicles. She returned a moment later with the teller, and they reviewed the transaction and the report. Both kept exclaiming, "Oh my God!" And thus they approached the operations manager. The teller returned to his cubicle to reverse the transaction, and Agnes profusely thanked me. This would have been a big problem if it had not been noticed. First, we would not have reconciled our records, and if the exchange rate changed, it would mean a huge loss and a lot of explaining. From then on, I realized the importance of the role and paid more attention to what I was doing. I served a greater purpose, not just ticking off transactions. I now realize why the interviewers had asked questions about attention to detail. A few weeks later, I was sent in the banking hall where, working with another team of new joiners, we were tasked with collecting documents from customers. As part of Know Your Customer process, banks contact customers to gather any missing or outdated documentation. For the first time, we were face to face with customers, most of whom were not pleased with the request of additional documents, hence the need to quickly learn client engagement skills. Working in the bank hall also forced us to quickly learn the different parts of the branch and the services each provided. We were the first desk people, so when they came in, so we had to handle inquiries. We then needed to prepare the documents by stamping and certifying copies after reviewing the originals. The documents had to be current, and when customers crossed out information, they had to countersign next to the crossing. I got into trouble many times because I did not seem to get things right. One day, a fed-up branch manager called me to her office. "Kombani, I do not know what you are, but you are not a banker. Can you take some time and think about what you really want to do?" I walked out and sat in the common area where a tea dispenser was continuously dispensing tea. As I sipped my cup of tea, I was certain I would hand in my resignation letter. She was right. I was not made for banking. As I was sipping tea, my thespian friends were in Mombasa acting the Merchant of Venice, a production I had conceptualized but not stayed on to actualize. I had proven myself as a playwright, short story writer, and long-form writer, and if I believed in myself, I could do even better. And then, contrary to Professor Mbogo's words, working in the bank did not mean leaving when the bank doors closed at 3 o'clock. In fact, work started when the bank doors closed. One of the managers came and sat beside me. He introduced himself as Paul Wango, the customer service manager. "Take heart, young man," he told me. "This is only a small bump on your road. I have seen you, and I can tell that you will go very far. Paul Wango is the reason I did not resign. Your loving son, Kombani." The reflection here is that Kombani actually is given working on credit slips and debit slips. Of course, he notices a big mistake that saves the bank a lot of money and also the teller alongside the operation manager, and that makes him to learn to be attentive. He is also taken to the banking hall with time and gets into a problem with a lady branch manager who tells him he should look for something suitable for him, only to be saved by Paul Wango, who tells him he is going far. Now guys and scholars, students, let's get to the synopsis. We see in this entry, Kombani is informing us about a flashback through the time he first got into the banking sector. He is given a role behind a lady known as Agnes to induct him, and she tells him he should work on seeing opposites, credit and that is debit. He has to keep ticking. He gets bored with this because he thinks it is unsuitable for a whole degree holder. Soon he discovers an anomaly in a transaction posted in a different currency. And this alarms the bank, especially the specific teller worker alongside Agnes. They thank him so much because he had saved the bank a lot of money, and an anomaly that could have led to lots of explanation and failure of reconciliation of records. He learns now that there is need to be attentive and understands why they required candidates who are attentive. Soon he is moved to the banking hall, where they are the first people to be seen for inquiries, and at the end of the day they also have to collect documents for stamping and certifying. Before collecting, they have to ensure that documents are current. However, in the process, Kombani realizes he's getting into trouble because he's not getting things right. A lady branch manager gets into trouble with him and tells him he should find out what is suitable for him because banking doesn't seem to be. However, while thinking about resigning and going to focus on writing and acting, he actually has a customer service manager known as Paul Wango, promising that if he focuses, he can get far. So he doesn't resign at the end of the day. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to character and characterization. We start with Kombani. We see Kombani as a loving person on page 118. Your loving son, Kombani. We also notice that Kombani is very focused, even though he was getting bored with details and ticking. He notices an anomaly in a currency that is very funny, and he saves the bank lots of money. We can also say he's focused because he is able to work in the banking hall regardless of the challenges. We could say he's critical. After ticking some papers for some days, he thinks he could not just complete a degree to come and tick things around here. We as well see that he is a bit emotional. When he is told by the branch manager that banking is not suitable for him, he quickly accepts that and wants to write a resignation letter. He keeps sipping tea. Remember, guys, any people who are emotional, they find a way to cool it. Either speak it, cry, they can take water, a lot of food, sleep. So for him, he sips lots of tea. At some point, we can say he's obedient because he listens to Paul Wango. When Wango tells him that he shouldn't resign because he can go far, he listens to that. Let's talk about the branch manager. I think the branch manager was a bit cruel, or rather brutal in her words, because telling somebody that this is not meant for you, think and get to wherever you're gonna get, it's a little bit blunt. And now we can get to Paul Wango, who was also supportive, because he looked at this guy, said he's just beginning job anyway. He may have mistakes, but he can go far, and told him that, something that cooled him down and enabled him not to resign. Agnes is, we can say, is appreciative. When Kombani saves them from the transaction that had been done, they really thank him a lot. We can say she is influential. I don't know whether we say influential or what, because here she is actually mentoring Kombani to do the right thing at the bank as someone who is supposed to induct him. Now we can get to thematic concerns. The first theme is work. We can see that Kombani is now working at the bank. He is working alongside Agnes, who is inducting him into tallying credits and debits. We see that while Kombani thought that his role was being almost unnecessary, he realizes he's supposed to be keen, and he begins to actually balance things and finally score. He also moves from that behind the teller to the banking hall, where he's supposed to collect documents certifying and qualifying the customers to get what they want to get. At the workplace, he gets to be actually talked to by 1, the branch manager, and 2, the customer service manager. We get to see determination. While working, Kombani is using determination actually to see that he pays attention to the mistakes and discovers one. He also gets to the banking hall determined with challenges, and as he's giving up, Paul Wango offers him another moment of determination. We also come to discover some sort of pessimism and optimism at the same time. The branch manager makes Kombani very pessimistic about his job. He wants to resign. On the other hand, Paul Wango makes Kombani optimistic, and he goes on without resigning. Those are the themes. We can get to stylistic devices, students, colleagues, and anybody listening. Epistolary mode commonly begins as the first style. Dear Mama, your loving son Kombani. The second style is direct address. On page 116, Agnes addresses Kombani saying, this is a credit slip and this is a debit slip. Every transaction we do has a contra. That is the opposite transaction. So if we are crediting an account, we should be debiting from another account. So if you see credit from a teller, there has to be a debit. We also see another direct address here on page 117. Oh my God, and then this would have been a big problem if it had not been noticed First, we would not have reconciled our records. And if the exchange rate changed, it would mean a huge loss and a lot of explaining. We see another direct address on page 118. Branch manager tells Kombani, I do not know what you are, but you are not a banker. Can you take some time and think about what you really want to do? The branch manager, the customer service manager, Paul Wango, also addresses Kombani saying, take heart, young man. This is only a small bump on your road. I have seen you, and I can tell you, you will go very far. We can also see a style right there. Take heart, I think it's an idiomatic expression. A small bump on your road is also an idiomatic expression to mean that's just a small challenge. Then we see onomatopoeia sipped on page 118. Then on page 117, I think there is irony here. It's ironical that Kombani had been thinking his job was very simple. It was not even meaningful ticking and tallying. Yet on the third day, he discovered that his role was very vital, and if not for paying attention, it would have cost the bank, Agnes and himself, a lot of money. It is also ironical that when Kombani saves the bank, even though there is appreciation, it's not very loud and it doesn't affect him as much. Yet, the day he actually messes with documents, the branch manager really tells him he is not a banker. It is also ironical that while the branch manager says Kombani is not a banker, we see the customer service manager seeing potential in Kombani. So that is irony. Now I want us to, I think that's the end of this entry 34. Bye-bye.